Hey, I'm Jamey from Stonemeyer Games, and today I'm going to talk about Beast Games. This was a show that just ended recently. It's an Amazon Prime show here in the US, and it was based off of the Mr. Beast YouTube channel, inspired by Squid Games, a giant competition where, in the end, a huge amount of money was given away to the winner. I'm not going to spoil that here. Um, if you're watching this, I don't know. You might be watching this because you watch my channel. If you are new to this channel because you came here to learn a little bit about Beast Games or my opinion on Beast Games, I'm a game designer. I design tabletop games. I've designed games like Scythe, Viticulture, Charterstone, Red Rising. Design a bunch of games. And so game design, I love talking about and thinking about game design. And there are a few reality competition shows that I really enjoy, like Survivor. I really enjoy Traders. And I really enjoyed Beast Games. I know it's flawed. I know there's some controversies about it, but overall, I thought it was highly entertaining. And I thought it did a spectacular job at asking the question to the viewer, what would you do if you were in this situation? And as a result, it generated a ton of discussion. Even just with me and my partner, Megan, we would watch an episode and have a great chat about what we would do if we were in the position of the contestants of the show. So I thought that was awesome. And I hope there's a second Beast Games in the future, a season 2, that continues to ask those types of questions. But there are certainly some things about the show that I think could be even better. I think it's already a pretty good show, highly entertaining, asks great questions, but I think it could be better in season 2. And so here are my top 10 things that I believe could be better about Beast Games if they do a season 2. Number 10, just a quick one here. I think Mr. Beast, he has a huge following on YouTube. I think and maybe this is part of his Amazon Prime agreement, but I think he could have used the YouTube channel a lot more, potentially, during the season of Beast Games to show more fun footage. Just footage of contestants hanging out and doing all the things that they must have done on this city that he built in Canada to film the show that we really saw any of. We really saw very little of what the contestants were doing when they weren't competing in challenges. And a lot of the contestants, I thought the casting was pretty good. Like a lot of the people seemed really interesting. I'd love to see how they interacted with each other beyond just the challenges. So I would love to see more fun footage on the Mr. Beast YouTube channel in season 2 of just the contestants hanging out and being people. As I've learned from Survivor a couple of seasons ago added extra time every episode, and that extra time gives us time to learn about what the survivors are doing when they're not strategizing, when they're not competing, when they're hanging out. It really ends up hearing you to these wonderful people. That's number 10. Number 9, gotta flip on over here. Let's see, flip to number 9, my very low tech way. Number 9 is for many of the challenges in Beast Games, they were only used once. And I would love to see some of the challenges used more than once. This was the case on the private island. All the challenges there were used exactly once. They were never used again. In the final episode, there were a bunch of challenges used, like they were played exactly once or again. One of the fun things about watching them is not just watching them once, but seeing how contestants learn as they see it played once, to see what they would do again, to see if they learn from that first experience. And it kind of gives you the feeling as a viewer when you're watching of, okay, not only what would I do here if it was my first time doing it, but also what have I learned now that I've seen someone else do it that I would do at the second attempt. So I would love to see more challenges used more than once. In particular, I thought the hide and seek challenge used on the island was a great one for asking, like, what would I do if Navy SEALs were trying to find out where I'm hiding on a small island? What would I do? Where would I hide? Have them do that more than once, maybe with a lot more people. And also the pattern puzzle used in the finale. I thought that was a great challenge, a well-designed challenge. I'd love to see that used repeatedly again. Both really well-designed challenges in my opinion. In fact, I'll add, in the hide and seek challenge, there was a really funny moment between one of the Navy SEALs and him kind of making fun in a good-natured way of one of the co-hosts, like the cohorts, the friends of Mr. Beast. And their dynamic was really funny. I'd love to follow them more often. That could go more into the fun footage category of number 10. That's number 9. Repeat challenges more than once. At number 8, okay, this was one of my big nitpicks about the show. There were a number of challenges where a single person did something that ended up eliminating a lot of people. Now, there were a few challenges like this that were really well designed, in my opinion. For example, where groups of people voted for a single person to represent them, and that single person decided to either take $1 million or, and in doing so, eliminate a bunch of people, 60, 70 people, or not take the $1 million and not eliminate all those people. I thought that was a good, interesting choice. But there were a number of other challenges where a mistake made by a single person, like not catching a ball, dropping a ball, that sort of thing, ended up eliminating a lot of people who had no impact or no control over whether that person's mistake happened or not, which just didn't seem fair. I think that would, if I were on the show and I went all the way out of my way to go on this show, I'm having a good time and I'm in a challenge where someone else messes up in a way that just ruins it for everyone else, including me, that would be really frustrating. Or decisions that individual contestants have that they can make to, again, eliminate a lot of people that are potentially racist or sexist. Now, I'm not saying that anyone on the show made a decision out of racism or sexism. There were certainly some questionable decisions along those lines, but you just don't want this is game design stuff. You don't want to add a decision in a show like this, especially for this much money, where racism or sexism could come into play, especially when one person could make a racist or sexist decision that then eliminates a bunch of people. And really, any sort of ism applies here. Ageism also applies, sexism, racism, any of these things where you're making a decision based on who someone is, or who someone is versus the content of their creator, their character. I don't think that belongs in a show like this. That's number 8. Number 7. So rapid fire, a couple different things here. Challenges that I really liked. A challenge that I really liked that I'd love to see again in season 2 is the ball throw challenge. This was on the private island where a number of contestants, one by one, had to throw a ball as close as possible to a line without throwing it past the line. And really clever challenge here. So if you threw it past the line, you were eliminated. But only 2 people were going to be eliminated in this challenge. So if one person throws across the line, it changes the dynamic for everyone else. If 2 people aren't eliminated in that way, then the person who is, or 2 people in this case, who are farthest away from the line are eliminated. I think this is a great design, really well-designed challenge because the dynamic changes throughout the challenge based on what previous contestants have done. It is a light dexterity challenge. Anyone can throw a ball, or most people, not anyone. I don't want to be ableist here, but most people can throw a ball 20 to 30 feet. And it really gives you a great choice. How hard do you throw that ball? Do you try to get really close to that line? Do you play it really, really safe and hope that someone else, hope that like the threshold of people throw over the line? Just a really well-designed challenge. I'd love to see that again with even more people. Maybe even simultaneously. I don't know. It worked well doing it one by one. And number 6, another challenge that I'd love to see again is there's a challenge where you had to count in your head a 10-minute timer in your head. And before that 10-minute timer, you had to drop a ball. And if you waited past the 10-minute timer, you were eliminated. And then again, the 6 people in this challenge who were the closest to 10 minutes, dropping the ball like right before 10 minutes, they were rewarded for doing that. I thought this was a really, really well-designed challenge. It asks the question, what would you do? How would you count in your head? And if there's one person in this challenge who starts counting out loud to throw other people off, I think that's an interesting dynamic there. So I really like this challenge. I'd love to see this again. Maybe not for 10 minutes again, but something like that, where you have you have to count a certain amount of time in your head. You're blindfolded. Just a great, well-designed challenge there. That's number 6 here. 2 challenges now at number 5 and number 4 that I would love to see again, but with some minor tweaks or maybe major tweaks. So the first is do the trolley game again. I thought that was a great challenge. The basics of the trolley game is that there's a train coming and there's one person in charge of deciding which of 2 tracks that train is going to go on. And sometimes there's like a reward on one of those tracks. Sometimes there's contestants, and whichever track you choose for the train to go on, that thing is eliminated, or those people are eliminated. I think that is the key decision in this challenge, in this little mini game here, which track do you want the train to go on? I do not think that you should give the person with that decision the choice of who goes on those tracks. And in like one of the examples that happened on the show, that person didn't have full control. But for the most part, that person who had control over the train or the trolley, they also had control over who went on both tracks. I think for the proper game design of this challenge, you can't have that person having control of both of those things. So I think a better way to design this challenge is to randomize those who and what goes on the tracks. Have essentially a hat that you're drawing balls from, and on those balls are the numbers of contestants, and on a few of those balls are awesome rewards, like the car that they gave that they could have given away. So draw a few random balls, put 3 of those things, whether they're objects or they're people, on the tracks, and then have the person decide, because that creates a really interesting dynamic in many different cases of, is a person's friend on one track? Is that friend next to a car? Is there a bunch of cash on one track with things that that person likes? Are there people that the person doesn't like on one track? Maybe a bunch of people end up on one track. And so do they decide, but there are people that they like among them, and there's only one person on another track. There's a great dynamic that can come from randomizing this instead of giving the person who's making the train decision also the choice of what goes on each track. Similar to that, number 4, I really, really liked the challenge, kind of a challenge, where Mr. Beast put $1 million in the middle of the square when there were 10 people left. And those 10 people chose an order of who would pick first. They didn't know what those 10 people were going to do or what the order really meant at the time. More on that in a second. But where there were 10 people and in a specific order, one person got to decide how much money they wanted to take out of that giant bin. And then the next person went and took from the remaining money, and the next person went. It created, I think, some of the most memorable moments of the show in giving these people that decision. How much money do you take when you are trying to build trust with 10 other people? Loved it. Loved everything about that. However, and I will talk about more about this in number 1, but the challenge that followed this challenge rewarded the people who took the most money, which to me does not make sense, because the people who have the most money, the people who took an extreme amount of money in this challenge, they already had all that money. They had already kind of won that challenge in terms of the money. They lost some friendships. They lost a lot of trust, but they won that money. And so they shouldn't be rewarded again for having all that money. Rather, I think the challenge should reward the people who take the least amount of money in this challenge. Now, I do understand there's a social dynamic at play here. There's the trust element. And that's great. I think that's important to keep that trust element, not to gamify everything. But I do think an advantage should have been given in reverse order to who took the least amount of money in this challenge. I think that would be a great way to flip it around for the next season. And number 3, there were pretty much every challenge in the show was Mr. Beast like showing people something very vague and maybe giving a vague hint, and then everyone competes in that challenge. I think, and in fact, I would say everyone then has a decision to make without really knowing what the challenge is about at all. I think giving players a little bit more agency for each challenge would be a better way to go. I think it's more fair that way in general. Let people know a little bit more about what the challenge is all about before having them embark on the challenge. And I think a great example of this, when the show did that worked really well, is there was one challenge where he said, okay, you can choose to compete in a physical challenge, a mental challenge, or a challenge of chance, a luck-based challenge. And so people could decide which one they wanted to participate in. And they could even decide with this challenge, they kind of lined up in front of the challenges so that you could even see how many people are in each challenge. So if there's like 20 people in one and only 5 on another, you could say, okay, well, maybe I didn't want to choose the chance challenge, but only 5 people are doing it, so I'll do that one. I think giving people that level of agency, and this is a great example because they didn't know what the physical challenge was. They didn't know what the mental challenge was, but they knew it was a physical or mental challenge. They had the choice, the control over choosing which of those they wanted to try. So I think giving players a little bit more information before the challenge would be better, would be more fair for sure. And number 2, so this is more about the scope of the show. I thought it was incredibly ambitious to do a show with 1,000 contestants. And even before the Amazon version of the show started, I think there were 2,000 contestants that competed in something that I think was on Mr. Beast's channel. I didn't watch much of that. So I think the show started with 1,000 people, and it had a big dramatic set of 1,000 people. It looked really cool to have that many people, but uh, you don't really get to know any characters, any people on the show, any contestants when you have that many people. And it's very little time is spent with so many of these people. You really never even see many of the people that are eliminated. So my recommendation for season 2 would be to still go with the big scope. Go with 1,000 people if Mr. Beast wants to do that, but have the first few episodes until he gets down to around maybe 100 people. 100 is still a lot of people, but I think that's more reasonable to get to know people. Do like 2 episodes on his YouTube channel where he has 1,000 people and then 500 people. Then get it down to 100 people. That's where the Amazon show starts. Start it with 100 people and let us get to know many of those 100 people. You can still eliminate a lot of them in every episode. You can cut it in half. You can trim however you want to divide it after that point. But I think starting the Amazon version of the show with fewer people leads to better storytelling along the way. Number 1, by far, my number 1 here is reward altruism through, especially, actually, I'll just say that in general. Reward altruism, reward self-elimination, self-sacrifice. Reward that rather than just have it be something that happens throughout the show. And don't make it a popularity contest. So the Mr. Beast brand, his YouTube channel, is largely about altruistic acts, like things where he is helping other people. He's restoring, he finds a bunch of people who are blind. He restores their sight. He finds a bunch of people who don't have appendages, and he gives them bionic arms, bionic legs. Mr. Beast does a lot of good in the world. I think, as anyone else in the world, he is flawed, but I think he does a lot of good, and his brand is altruism through entertainment. But on the Beast, on the show, on Beast Games, there were so many times where he asked people to sacrifice their own chances at winning money, at winning the $5 million, by simply being nice about it, by simply removing them, by simply eliminating themselves with no other benefit. And by doing that, you are rewarding those who, I don't want to say necessarily greedy, but because a lot of people were trying to use this money for a variety of things. And so what if someone wants to just use their money to make their own life better? That's totally fine. But I think he should reward that altruism more. And in some cases, just reward it, period. There are many, many challenges along the way in the show where someone gave up their chance at winning for the greater good. And they were not given any reward for doing that beyond the $2,000 that he gave to everyone on the show. So I think I would love to see it reversed along the way. Oh, and part of this is that I think Mr. Beast, the way that he tried to reward altruism in the show was there were a number of times along the way where he had people vote for someone that they liked or disliked. So it became, he used a popularity contest as a way of showing altruism to people. And I just don't think it works all that well on a show like this. People just end up rewarding their friends or the people that they've gotten to know. And you even see some weird stuff happen with it, where there was kind of a cult that started on the show around this one guy, and it was a little weird for a little while. I know there's probably different perspectives on whether it was a cult, whether it was a religious thing, but it got a little weird in one of the episodes. And so to avoid that weirdness, to avoid the popularity contest, instead reward altruism in other ways. If I sacrifice my chances at winning the $5 million, reward me in some other way. And I think the number one way that he can rectify this from season 1 is to invite back every single person who eliminated themselves from the show to help out the greater good, to help out their group, their team. Take every single one of those people and put them on season 2 automatically. They get in automatically if they want to. I think it's quite a few people who have done this in season 1. So I think that's the number one way to rectify it from season 1. And then in season 2, just do a better job of rewarding people if they choose to self-eliminate, and really ask for fewer people to self-eliminate. I don't think that is all that great to ask to people who have signed up to be on the show. Like they want to be on the show. They don't want to self-eliminate. They don't want to go home. So just ask that question less. But also, if you do present that opportunity, instead of phrasing it as like a bribe, just say, okay, here's your chance to go home with some money now, and you can save these 10 people, or stay in the show and don't do that. I just reward altruism a little bit more without making it a popularity contest. That's my number one thing that could improve about the Beast Games season one, or season two after watching season one. I'd love to hear your thoughts. All of this is just my opinion as a person who is entertained by the show, and also as a game designer. I love this gamification. I love the choices that were presented in the show, and I think they could be even better in season two. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below about what you would like to improve about Beast Games in season two. I'd love your thoughts. Or if you disagree with anything that I said, as long as you do it respectfully, I want to hear what you have to say. So feel free to do that in the comments below. Thanks.